Today I'm going to share with you a story that challenges everything we know about life and death. A man had a near-death experience and received a frightening revelation about the future, and what he saw for March 2025 could change the course of humanity. Before we start, comment here from which city you are watching, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories like this. Now, get ready, because this story will move you. That morning in Monterrey started like any other, but soon turned into an unexpected nightmare. I, Elpidio Calderon Espinosa, woke up with the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Shortly after opening my eyes, a tightness in my chest invaded me with the force of a hurricane, as if an invisible fist was compressing my ability to breathe. The sound of the still distant city mixed with the rapid beat of my heart as I struggled to understand what was happening. Elpidio, are you okay? The voice of Mariana, my sister, sounded shaky, full of concern. She was next to me, her eyes wide, searching for signs of normality in my face. The normally cozy atmosphere of my room now seemed to close in around me. The soft morning light became oppressive, and I felt every muscle in my body tremble as if it was about to give way. The difficulty of breathing turned each breath into a battle, and each second dragged on with the weight of an eternity. "I need help!" I managed to whisper, my voice breaking between moans of pain and despair. Mariana, without wasting time, grabbed my arm tightly and with teary eyes called for our father. It wasn't long before our mother joined us, and a sense of urgency invaded the house. As anxiety grew, decisions needed to be made quickly, without hesitation. My father called an ambulance, his voice firm but full of fear as I fought to maintain consciousness. The sensation was of being divided between two worlds: the physical world, where panic and chaos took place, and another state, where life seemed to slip through my fingers. In the ambulance, the environment transformed into a symphony of bustling sounds. The noise of tires on the street, the restrained screams of paramedics, and the incessant beeping of equipment created an almost surreal scene. I was surrounded by professionals, but all I could feel was the chill down my spine and the urgency of each beat of my heart, which seemed to mark the time for the inevitable. "Keep calm, Elpidio. You're going to be fine," one of the paramedics murmured, trying to convey reassurance, even though I knew that inside me everything seemed to be falling apart. Every moment turned into an eternity as the ambulance cut through Monterrey's chaotic traffic. On the way to the hospital, the pain increased and my strength gave out. My vision was beginning to blur, as if the colors and shapes of the real world were dissolving into a melancholy blur. In the midst of this whirlwind, the touch of Mariana's hand on my arm was the only thread that anchored me to reality, an anchor of love and hope. We arrived at the hospital with a speed that reflected the despair of everyone there. As we entered the lobby, the tension was palpable. The rush of employees and the sound of hurried footsteps mixed with an almost palpable sense of urgency. I felt like life and death were about to meet on a tenuous threshold, and every breath became a battle to not lose myself completely. As they prepared me for emergency procedures, a mix of voices and noises filled my ears. "Let's stabilize him. Don't worry, he'll make it." But inside me, fear and doubt fought fiercely against hope. As the doctors and nurses rushed to stabilize me, something extraordinary began to happen inside me. At first, I felt a strange lightness, as if the weight of my body was beginning to melt away. It was as if a translucent veil opened before my eyes, revealing a parallel reality, where the physical and spiritual worlds met in a surprising way. "Elpidio, we are here with you, don't leave." I heard a muffled scream from a doctor who seemed to insist that I remain, fighting against an uncertain fate. However, at that exact moment, the feeling of detachment intensified. I could see my own silhouette from an angle I had never imagined. My body, motionless on the emergency table, seemed to float as I observed the scene with a clarity and distance that defied logic. Every detail of the hospital environment, the fluorescent lights, the frantic movement of professionals, was transformed into an almost ethereal spectacle. I remember hearing fragments of conversations, the words mixing with the distant sound of equipment. For a brief moment, Nurse Carmen Gomez's voice seemed to whisper, You are not alone, Elpidio. We are here for you. However, these words echoed distantly, as if they came from another place, from a very old and forgotten memory. As I floated, reality seemed to distort. The colors intensified, and each gesture of the professionals gained a luminous aura. I could even notice the sheen of sweat on Dr. Santiago Lozano's forehead, and his every movement seemed choreographed with almost divine precision. In this almost trance-like state, time no longer made sense. Each second stretched infinitely, as if suspended in an eternal present. Elpidio, concentrate, please. An insistent murmur invaded my being, trying to make me return. But the temptation to explore that new world was irresistible. There was a serene peace that dominated every inch of my consciousness, contrasting sharply with the agitation and fear that still pulsed through my physical body. The feeling of being detached from the material was mixed with a slight discomfort, because even floating, I couldn't help but feel the urgency and love that emanated from the people around me. Mariana, with teary eyes, held my hand as if she wanted to anchor my soul to reality. "Come back to us, Elpidio," she repeated with a strength that brimmed with both hope and fear. It was in the meantime that the duality of existence revealed itself. While part of me marveled at the freedom of floating, another part clung, desperately to what I knew, to life with its pains and joys, to the hugs and tears of my family. I felt torn between two worlds, where the barrier between the physical and the spiritual was tenuous and permeable. As the medical team continued their frantic work to save me, I found myself on the threshold. The feeling of detachment was not simply separation from a physical body. It was the open door to a new form of perception, where love, fear, and hope intertwined in a silent dance. Every look, every touch, had a meaning that went beyond the barriers of time and matter. And so, suspended between the tangible and the intangible, I felt like I was about to unlock the mysteries of existence. This experience, although terrifying, carried an indescribable beauty, an invitation to look beyond the limits of our immediate reality. As I floated, the coldness of the hospital environment began to dissipate, and a fog of memories thickened in my mind. In the blink of an eye, the emergency room and medical equipment disappeared, giving way to a scene I knew very well: the kitchen of my childhood home. The transition was as smooth as it was surprising. There I was, but not as I remembered, and the kitchen exuded the warmth and smell of home cooking, mixed with the innocence of times gone by. "Grandma, I'm here," I murmured, as if my words could cross the barrier between time and space. In the center of the kitchen, under the soft light that invaded the room, I saw the silhouette of my grandmother. She was busy, as if no time had passed, stirring a pot, with a tranquility that contrasted with the turmoil I was experiencing. Her flowery apron, her hair tied with a simple scarf, every detail was vivid and touched a deep chord in my heart. I walked towards her, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't overcome that invisible barrier that separated us. His hands moved with grace and dexterity, and the familiarity of his voice, although muffled, echoed in the room with tenderness. "Elpidio, my dear, come here," his voice seemed to whisper, but at the same time, it was enveloped in a mix of joy and melancholy. I tried to reach her, stretching my arms out in a desperate gesture to touch the face I loved so much. However, as I got closer, I realized that everything was like a distant dream, a memory in the form of a mist that dissipated at the touch. No matter how hard I tried, the feeling that she didn't completely belong to that world invaded me. The kitchen walls were adorned with old paintings, and the aroma of fresh food mixed with the unmistakable scent of the flowers that decorated the window. Every detail made me relive the moments of my childhood with a clarity I never imagined I could achieve. It was as if time had been compressed, and I could revisit every laugh, every tear, every secret whispered at the table. "Grandma, why can't I touch you?" I questioned, my voice filled with a mix of pain and desire to recover that lost comfort. My grandmother smiled, an expression of tenderness and resignation forming on her ethereal face. She continued stirring the pot as if nothing had changed, And at that moment, I understood that that scene was much more than a simple memory. It was a bridge to a past that shaped who I am. The environment seemed to pulse with the energy of memories, and each object in the kitchen told a story of lazy afternoons, of games in the backyard, of silent teachings passed around the table. The pain of separation was palpable, but at the same time there was a reassuring comfort, a feeling that, despite the barrier, the love of that time never faded. As I stood there, in that space between the real and the ethereal, I was overcome with a deep feeling of gratitude. Life, with all its complexities, has always supported me with simple gestures, and that reunion with the past was a reminder that, even in times of greatest vulnerability, the roots of our being remain firm and welcoming. The scene became a refuge, a brief interlude where the agony and fear of the hospital were replaced by sweet, comforting memories. But at the same time, the awareness that this was just a vision, a temporary passage, made sadness mix with relief. Suddenly, as if the warm childhood scenery dissipated into smoke, I was abruptly thrown into an abyss of darkness. The transition was as violent as it was silent. I found myself immersed in absolute darkness, where the absence of color and form seemed to swallow every fragment of memory. There was no light, no familiar sound, just an oppressive silence and a cold that seemed to come from the depths of the universe. As I advanced, feeling my way through nothingness, I began to notice the presence of other souls. They were indistinct figures, wandering aimlessly, each carrying an invisible weight of sadness and despair. Some moved with slow steps, as if immobilized by deep fears, while others seemed to dance in a tragic choreography, lost in a whirlwind of anguish. "Who's there? Show that they exist," I whispered, my voice echoing without response in the middle of the void. An unsettling feeling invaded me, mixed with the urgency to find a way out. It was then that, almost like an invitation, a distant and almost imperceptible sound cut through the silence. It was a faint melody, a musical whisper that seemed to call to me. Each note vibrated in the air like a beacon of hope, offering a possibility of rescue in that sea of darkness. Without knowing if it was illusion or the very essence of a destiny that called me, I began to follow the sound. Each step was a fight against inertia. Each movement carried the weight of a determination that rose from the depths of my soul. Amidst the black immensity, the melody took shape, guiding me along tortuous paths that intertwined in a dance of shadows. "Chikum, don't get lost. Follow me." The sound seemed to murmur, as if a hidden voice was trying to guide me. As I moved forward, I noticed that not all the souls were moving. Some remained static, rooted in their own terror, as if fear had trapped them in that limbo. His eyes, if they could be called that, conveyed a deep despair, and the environment seemed to absorb every drop of that anguish. I wondered in the darkness if I would ever feel the warmth of life again, or if I was destined to wander forever in this state of transition. The cold was biting, and the silence was deafening, but the melody insisted, promising that the light was near. As I walked, the feeling of isolation began to give way to a more acute awareness of existence. I could feel the traces of other people's emotions, fear, pain, but also a spark of hope in some hearts. In a brief moment of clarity, I realized that this abyss was not an end, but a passage, a test for the soul that yearned for transcendence. "If I can cross this darkness, I will find the light," I repeated to myself, like a mantra, trying to transform despair into courage. Each note of the melody propelled me forward, and the sound intensified as I approached a point where the darkness seemed to break, opening up a glimpse of the unknown. There, hope was palpable, and even surrounded by pain and fear, a feeling of transformation began to blossom within me. The journey through the abyss revealed the duality of existence, the confrontation with our deepest fears, and the possibility of rebirth that resides in each step towards the light. As darkness seemed to threaten to swallow my existence, the melody that guided me gradually transformed into a hymn of hope. Suddenly, the opacity of the abyss began to give way to a dazzling glow, which appeared like a portal to another dimension. I felt a comforting warmth coursing through every cell, dispelling the cold and fear that had accompanied me. "Feel the light, Elpidio." A soft and compassionate voice resounded, echoing in the immensity of space, as if coming from a place where time did not exist. As I approached the light source, the scene around me transformed into a spectacle of colors and shapes. In the midst of a surprising landscape, where trees with silver foliage and sparkling flowers danced with an invisible breeze, I realized that I was facing something extraordinary. It was as if nature itself came together in celebration of life, offering a refuge for souls seeking redemption. In the center of this magical landscape, a radiant figure stood out. Guadalupe Cruz, with her serene presence and gaze full of wisdom, approached with steps that seemed to float over the luminous grass. His features were soft, but his aura radiated an immeasurable energy of compassion and unconditional love. Her hair, flowing as if made of light, framed a serene face, where sadness and hope mixed in a deep and welcoming. "Look. You have crossed the darkness, Elpidio," said Guadalupe in a calm but firm voice. "And now you are ready to see the truth that lives within you." As I approached, I felt her every word penetrate the barriers of my being, awakening long-dormant feelings. The surrounding environment seemed to adapt to our presence. The whispering of the trees and the soft tinkling of the flowers made up a symphony that celebrated life in its purest form. In the midst of this celestial scenery, the guiding figure extended his hands, as if wanting to offer not only comfort, but also guidance for the path I should follow. "Here, you will find the peace you have always sought," she continued, while her eyes shone with a mix of tenderness and determination. "But remember, the light can only be appreciated if we first face the darkness. Everything you have experienced, every pain and every joy, has prepared you for this moment." Guadalupe's presence not only calmed my fears, but also awakened a sense of purpose. In her every gesture, one could see the certainty that the journey through darkness was necessary to reveal the true essence of life. Her words were a balm for the soul, and the intensity of the light that emanated from her made every shadow move away, giving way to a vision where hope reigned supreme. At that moment, I realized that my existence would never be the same again. When I was surrounded by that aura of love and wisdom, I understood that the encounter with the light and my spiritual guide was not the end, but the beginning of a profound transformation. The clarity of every detail, the intense brilliance of the colors, and the gentle melody of the environment all conspired to remind me that, no matter how dark the journey may seem, there is always a way back to the light. As the light of Guadalupe still flickered around me, I felt led to a space that had transcended conventional time and space. We were in front of an immense floating screen where images and memories unfolded as if they were scenes from a movie. Guadalupe, with her soft and firm voice, invited me to watch a retrospective of my own existence. "Elpidio, every step you took, every gesture, shaped the being you are today," she said, as the screen came to life, projecting the first memories of my childhood. Soon, the scene changed to a familiar scenario. Me, still a boy, playing in the backyard of my grandparents' house in Monterey. The innocent laughter and vibrant colors of that time emerged with almost palpable intensity. I smelled the damp earth, the sound of laughter, the soft touch of the breeze. It was as if I was reliving each moment with surprising clarity. "Remember, this purity and joy are the essence of who you have always been," murmured Guadalupe, as the image changed to more memorable moments of adolescence. Memories followed one another in a continuous flow. I saw the moments in which I made difficult decisions, the meetings that defined paths, and even the mistakes I made. Every detail was revealed. The first time I felt truly loved, the day I helped a friend in need, the times I let pride take me, away from those who loved me. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, as if I were revisiting forgotten chapters of a book I unknowingly wrote. Amid those scenes, one memory stood out strongly, a moment when, even in the face of adversity, I chose compassion. I remember helping a neighbor in a desperate situation, even without expecting anything in return. That memory shone on the screen like a beacon of light, reminding me that despite the mistakes and missteps, there were also moments of redemption and love. Every action, no matter how small it may seem, has the power to transform lives. You, Elpidio, touched so many souls with your heart, declared Guadalupe, as the image faded to scenes of meetings and goodbyes, of joy and tears. Every face that passed before my eyes carried a piece of my story. Every smile and every tear were records of a path full of learning. I felt like I was being bathed in a current of emotions, each one leaving an indelible mark on my soul. The review was not just a parade of memories, but a silent dialogue with my own being. It was the recognition that each experience, the joys and the sufferings, were fundamental to the man I had become. As the last scenes faded, I was immersed in a deep sense of gratitude and understanding. Guadalupe looked at me tenderly and said, "Now you understand that your life is a mosaic of moments, each one essential to your evolution. The pain, the happiness, the mistakes, and the successes. They all led you here." Those words echoed inside me, reaffirming that, even in the darkest moments, there was beauty and learning. The life review was, then, not just a trip to the past, but an invitation to embrace the future with wisdom and compassion. Faced with the immensity of everything I had experienced in reviewing my existence, I was faced with a decision that seemed to carry the weight of the entire universe. In a scenario where light and darkness mixed, Guadalupe took me to a metaphorical crossroads. On my side, the path glowed with a comforting intensity, representing the serene and ethereal state I was experiencing at that moment. On the other, a faint trail indicated the possibility of returning to my physical body, where life continued with its pains and joys. "Elpidio, this is your crossroads," said Guadalupe, her voice carrying a resolute calm, while her eyes, full of compassion, watched me intently. "Here, you can choose to remain in this existence of pure light, where pain no longer afflicts you, or return to the physical world with all its imperfections, but also with the chance to continue to learn and love." Her words echoed like an invitation and a challenge at the same time. Within me, the attraction to the peace offered by the light was intense. The idea of remaining in that transcendent environment, where every thought was gentle and memories dissolved into a sea of serenity, was tempting. However, when I turned to the memories of my family, to the anxious faces of Mariana, Dr. Santiago, and the others who fought for my life, a feeling pulsed strongly. The need to continue being part of that world, to leave a legacy of love and compassion. As I mentally walked between these two realities, I began to remember moments from my journey. The laughter shared on sunny afternoons, the tears shed in moments of pain, and above all, the simple gestures that demonstrated how much each encounter had shaped who I was. This memory not only filled me with hope, but also revealed to me that even with all the challenges, life was a unique gift. "But Guadalupe, if I return, will I be just another ordinary man with the same fears and flaws?" I asked, in a voice that trembled, mixing uncertainty and the need to reaffirm my own worth. She smiled gently, as if she already knew the answer in my heart, and replied, "Elpidio, being ordinary is what makes you extraordinary. Every human being carries the ability to transform pain into strength, fear into courage. The return does not mean an end, but the beginning of a journey where the knowledge I acquired here will be your weapon against the darkness. You have the chance to illuminate the lives of others with the light you have found." Guadalupe's words reverberated inside me, creating a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, remaining in that state of pure light offered the promise of a painless, limitationless existence. But on the other hand, returning meant continuing the fight, facing the imperfections and challenges of the physical world, and above all, having the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those I loved. As I pondered, a vivid image invaded my mind. The scene at the hospital, with the emotional smiles of my family, the hopeful looks that asked me to return. It was at that very moment that I realized that my destiny was intertwined with theirs. The possibility of illuminating the path of others, of transforming small gestures into great acts of compassion, seemed to be the greater purpose that life itself offered me. As the duality of choice unfolded, I felt a growing inner strength propelling me toward return. The peace of light was tempting, but the love that awaited me The mission that was revealed and the chance to follow a path of learning and transformation in the physical world were greater. It was as if an invisible energy pulled me back, inviting me to get back to reality, to resume life with a new outlook and renewed purpose. "I choose to return," I declared, my voice firm even as a flicker of hesitation tried to creep in. So, with my heart beating with the certainty of a new beginning, I accepted the call of life. The decision, made in the midst of a dance between light and shadow, meant not only the return to my physical body, but the beginning of a new journey of transformation and love. Before my consciousness consolidated itself back into the physical body, a new glimpse of reality unfolded before me, as sudden as it was shocking. Guadalupe, with her almost supernatural calm, approached and extended her hand, as if she wanted to present me with a final revelation. His eyes shone intensely, and for a brief moment, I could see the reflection of a future yet to be built. "Elpidio, pay attention," she began, her voice carrying a solemn urgency. "Before we return completely, I need to show you something that transcends this moment, something that concerns not only you, but all humanity." Suddenly, I was enveloped by a luminous mist, and the screen of my perceptions transformed into a vivid, chaotic panorama. Before me, as if I were watching a movie in high definition, scenes unfolded of a world on the verge of collapse. I saw images of natural disasters, such as colossal storms, violent earthquakes, and floods that wiped out entire cities. At the same time, glimpses of conflicts and social tensions appeared almost indistinctly, like shadows cast on an apocalyptic background. "March 2025, muttered Guadalupe, as she pointed to a date that shone like a beacon in the darkness. "This will be a decisive milestone, a turning point where paths will meet, and the destiny of humanity will be reevaluated." As the images unfolded, I noticed an impressive duality. Despite the chaos that was present, I also saw signs of hope, people united in gestures of solidarity, communities rebuilding themselves from the ruins, and a collective energy that suggested a latent spiritual awakening. It was as if, in the midst of destruction, humanity found the strength to be reborn, guided by a higher consciousness and by small acts of compassion that turned into silent revolutions. "See, Elpidio," continued Guadalupe, her voice echoing firmly, "every disaster, every fall, is also an opportunity, a call for each of us to awaken to the truth of our existence. March 2025 is not just a date, it is the symbol of a global transformation, where the old gives way to a new dawn." As I absorbed these visions, I felt a mixture of uneasiness and responsibility. The future that presented itself was uncertain, but it was full of potential for change. The scenes showed the faces of people, young and old from different cultures, all immersed in a moment of epiphany, as if they were waking up from a long sleep. Every gesture of kindness, every tight hug, seemed to amplify a transformative energy that could, in fact, rescue humanity from its own abyss. The feeling was that the prophecy was not a fatal sentence, but a warning, an invitation to reflection and action. Guadalupe made it clear that, although future events seemed threatening, they also carried a seed of renewal, an impulse for human beings to reconnect with their most essential values: love, empathy, and solidarity. "You, Elpidio, and many others who go through experiences like this play a crucial role in this new era," she declared, as the images began to dissipate, leaving a remnant of light that encouraged hope. "It is up to us to inspire change, to make a difference before the Great Awakening is complete." So, as the March 2025 prophecy pulsed through my mind like an inescapable reminder, I felt that knowledge was both a burden and an opportunity. A burden of knowing how fragile the fabric of our existence can be, but also an opportunity to act, to transform each small gesture into a current of light capable of changing the course of history. The sudden force pulling me back to reality made itself felt with an intensity that none of my senses could ignore. Suddenly, the luminous vastness and heavenly visions began to merge into a single wave of energy, and as if I were being called by invisible hands, I felt my consciousness draw closer to my physical body. In an instant that seemed eternal, the darkness of the hospital room appeared around me again. "Elpidio, we're here. Hang in there," I heard Dr. Santiago Lozano's trembling voice, mixed with the hurried murmurs of the medical team. It was as if each word was a comforting elixir, an anchor that connected me to earthly life. When I opened my eyes, I noticed the familiar atmosphere of the hospital. The cold lights and mechanical sounds of the equipment took on meaning again, but something inside me had already changed. The reunion with my body was not abrupt, but rather a smooth transition, as if I were being reconstituted piece by piece. Each beat of my heart was accompanied by a new perception, a clarity that allowed me to see life from a profoundly transformed perspective. My family, gathered by my side, shed tears of relief and love. Mariana held my hand firmly, her eyes filled with an overflowing emotion, an expression of gratitude that seemed to echo in every fiber of my being. In the midst of these intense moments, I was able to realize that, even though the pain of the sudden illness still persisted, something immeasurable had taken hold in me, an inner transformation that transcended the limitations of the physical body. I'm back, I murmured in a choked voice, feeling a mixture of relief and new determination. The simple fact that I was breathing again was, for me, a divine gift. Every breath seemed to carry with it the promise of a new chance to rewrite my story. As the doctors continued to monitor my vital signs, a sense of peace and acceptance began to take root in my heart. The lived experience was no longer a simple episode of near death. It had become a decisive milestone, a turning point that allowed me to see the intrinsic value of each moment, no matter how simple. Little by little, the physical pain gave way to mental and emotional clarity, which led me to reflect on each choice, each gesture of love and compassion that I sometimes took for granted. From that day on, something profoundly changed in the way I viewed life. The experience that almost took me to the brink turned into a symbol of rebirth, a reminder that, even in the face of suffering, there is a light capable of illuminating the darkest corners of existence. This new realization awakened in me a burning desire to not just live, but to turn each day into an opportunity for growth, to spread the love and compassion that had saved me at that critical moment. As I rested, still under the watchful eye of professionals and the comfort of my family, I felt that my return was more than a physical recovery. It was a personal metamorphosis that urged me to honor every moment and embrace life with courage and gratitude. When I left the hospital, with the feeling of having been reborn, every step I took in Monterey brought to light a new understanding about the value of life. The experience I lived became a silent legacy, an internal flame that drove me to make a difference in the world. I walked through the busy streets of the city, where every face, every corner, seemed to carry its own story. I knew that even though I was just an ordinary man, I could be the spark of change that many needed. Elpidio, your look has changed. You seem to carry the light of a new dawn, commented Mariana, with a smile that mixed pride and emotion, when she saw me walking home after being discharged from the hospital. That look, which previously reflected tiredness and resignation, now overflowed with hope and determination. My every gesture, every word I spoke became imbued with a deep meaning. I decided that my mission would be to share the experience I lived, not as a narrative for fame or recognition, but as an invitation for others to find the courage to face their own shadows. In casual encounters and sincere conversations with friends, family, and even strangers, I humbly told the details of that encounter with the light and with Guadalupe. Many looked at me with incredulity, but others, with tears in their eyes, found there a reason to reevaluate their own paths. You know, Elpidio, after listening to you, I started to value every little gesture of kindness. You made me realize that even in adversity there is always an opportunity to be reborn, confided an old friend, as we shook hands in a fraternal hug. The message I brought was clear. Every act of love, no matter how small it may seem, is capable of transforming reality. I began to dedicate myself to community projects, getting involved with institutions that promoted inclusion, acceptance, and solidarity. In meetings with local leaders, I exposed my vision of a future where spiritual awakening could be the basis for a more just and humane society. Transformation begins in each one of us, I said, with a firm voice and penetrating gaze. because love, when shared, has the power to illuminate even the darkest corners. Time passed, and the seed I planted began to germinate. People came together in campaigns carrying out small gestures that multiplied and took on unimaginable proportions. The prophecy of March 2025, which was revealed to me one day, came to be seen as a call, not of terror, but of collective rebirth. I saw in each solidarity action the possibility of a future where humanity reconnected with its most essential values. One afternoon, while walking through Parque Fundidora in Monterrey, I was approached by a young woman who thanked me emotionally. I never imagined that a simple conversation could change my outlook on life. Today, I feel inspired to help my community. Thank you, Elpidio. These words echoed as a reminder that my legacy was not measured in great achievements, but in the ability to inspire and transform lives. Each encounter, each smile shared, consolidated the idea that the light I had found was a gift that needed to be spread. Thus, I continue my journey, no longer as a mere survivor, but as a messenger of hope. The call to humanity remains alive in me, and each new day is an opportunity to light another flame of compassion and love.